In the long run, we're all dead. There's a strange problem most people never notice. No matter how productive you become, no matter how many goals you check off, no matter how organized your life looks on the outside, you still feel behind. There's always something you're not doing, something you should be doing better, something you haven't figured out yet. So you wake up, check your phone, plan your day, and immediately feel like you're already late, like life is a race you somehow entered without instructions. But here's the part that changes everything. If you live to be around 80 years old, your entire life will last about 4,000 weeks. That's it. Not 20,000, not 10,000, just 4,000 weeks of being alive on this planet. Not decades in some abstract sense, not plenty of time later, just around 4,000 weeks if you're lucky. And once you actually sit with that number, something uncomfortable starts to happen, because suddenly, the problem isn't that you're doing life wrong. The problem might be that you're trying to fit an unlimited life into a very limited amount of time. So you try to optimize, you try to organize, you try to get on top of everything. Emails, goals, habits, side projects, personal growth, future plans. And the more you try to control it all, the more it feels like life is slipping through your fingers. This is the hidden tension the book is built on. We don't suffer because we are doing nothing. We suffer because we are trying to do everything. And deep down, most of us believe that if we just become more efficient, more disciplined, more focused, we'll finally feel caught up with life. But what if that moment never comes? What if caught up is not a real destination? What if the whole idea of getting on top of life is the illusion that keeps us overwhelmed in the first place? In this video, we're going to break down the core ideas from 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. Not as a summary, but as a reality check on how we relate to time, productivity, and the pressure to do it all. Because once you understand these ideas, something shifts. You stop asking how to do everything and start asking what actually deserves your life. The strange thing about time is that we almost never think about it clearly. We know, in theory, that life is limited. Everyone understands that at some level. But in practice, we behave as if time is something we can always get more of later. Like there's an unlimited supply waiting somewhere in the future. So we delay things, we postpone decisions, we tell ourselves we'll start later when things calm down. But life doesn't actually work that way. Because if you really zoom out, the truth is uncomfortable. Most of what we call time is already behind us, and the part in front of us is much smaller than we naturally assume. This is what Oliver Burkeman means when he talks about facing finitude. Finitude just means limits. The limit that you will not have time for everything. The limit that you will not become every version of yourself you imagine. The limit that you will not experience every opportunity life could offer. And instead of facing that directly, most of us build our entire lives around avoiding it. We try to outsmart it with productivity. We tell ourselves that if we just manage time better, organize better, plan better, we can stretch life further than it actually goes. But that never really works, because no matter how efficient you become, the limit stays the same. And this is where something deeper shows up. The book calls it something like a human disease, not a physical illness, but a mental pattern. The constant feeling that you are behind in life, that you should be doing more, that you are not using your time properly. So you fill your days with activity, not because everything matters, but because stillness forces you to think about limits. And most people are quietly running from that thought. This is why productivity culture feels so addictive. It gives you the feeling that you are in control, that if you just do more, optimize more, plan more, you can stay ahead of life. But the more you chase that feeling, the more it slips away. Because the truth is, you were never meant to solve time. You were meant to live inside it, and that changes everything. Because once you stop treating life like a problem to fix, you start seeing it for what it actually is. A limited stretch of time that cannot be expanded, only experienced. At some point, most people believe the same thing. If I can just get more organized, if I can just become more disciplined, if I can just manage my time better, then I'll finally feel on top of life. That idea feels logical, even hopeful, but in reality, it rarely works out that way, because something strange happens when you become more efficient. Instead of freeing up time, it usually just fills your life with even more things to do. You finish your tasks faster, so new ones appear. You clear your schedule, so it gets filled again. You become more productive, so expectations rise with you. And slowly, without noticing, your life becomes busier than it was before. This is what the book calls the efficiency trap. The belief that if you just optimize everything enough, eventually reach a point where everything is done. But that point never arrives, because there is always more to do, and more importantly, there is always more you could be doing. So even when your to-do list is empty, your mind isn't. It starts generating new tasks, new goals, new improvements, new ways you could be better or more ahead in life. This is why productivity can feel endless. It doesn't remove work, it multiplies it. And this is where the deeper truth shows up. The problem was never that you were not efficient enough. The problem is the assumption that life is something you can finish. But life doesn't behave like a project with a final checklist. It behaves more like a stream that keeps producing new demands as long as you are trying to control it. So the more you try to get on top of everything, the more everything expands around you. And this creates a quiet frustration, because you start to feel like you are always close to catching up, but never actually arriving. Just one more task, just one more system, just one more improvement, but done keeps moving further away. And without realizing it, you start living inside a cycle where productivity is no longer serving you. You are serving productivity. One of the hardest truths about life is also one of the simplest. You cannot do everything, not because you are lazy, not because you are disorganized, but because it is mathematically impossible. Every choice you make automatically removes thousands of other choices you could have made. Every direction you take means leaving other paths behind. Even small decisions work like this. If you spend your evening working on one thing, you are not spending it on something else. If you commit to one goal, you are quietly saying no to many others. And most of the time, we don't like thinking about that part, because it forces you to see life differently. This is what the book explores through the idea of becoming a better procrastinator. Normally, we think procrastination is always a problem, but Burkeman flips it, because the real issue is not that you are always avoiding work, it's that you are always trying to do everything at the same time. So your attention becomes scattered across too many things that all feel important, and nothing gets your full presence. So in a strange way, learning to procrastinate better means learning to accept limits, to choose what you will not do, to let certain things sit unfinished, not because you are failing, but because you are prioritizing something else. Then there is this idea often referred to in the book as the watermelon problem. It's the feeling that life keeps offering you more opportunities than you can possibly consume. Like being given a watermelon every day when you can only eat a slice. You don't have a shortage of options, you have an excess of them, and that excess creates pressure, because every opportunity feels like something you might be missing out on. So instead of feeling satisfied, you feel stretched, pulled in too many directions at once, and over time, that pressure quietly turns into anxiety. There is also another subtle idea here. Most of life is not defined by what you choose to do. It is defined by what you choose not to do, what you ignore, what you delay, what you leave unfinished. And that part is uncomfortable, because it means there is no version of life where you get everything right. There is no path where nothing is sacrificed. So instead of asking, how do I fit everything in? The real question becomes, what am I willing to leave out so that something else can actually matter? And that is where life becomes clearer, not easier, but clearer. Because once you accept that you can't do everything, you stop wasting your life trying. At some point in life, most people start believing something without really noticing it, that if they plan well enough, if they organize their life properly, if they prepare enough, then eventually, everything will fall into place. The future will feel clearer, the timing will feel right, and life will finally feel under control. But in reality, that moment never really arrives, because the future doesn't show up the way we imagine it. It always arrives slightly differently, slightly messier, slightly less predictable, slightly more demanding than we planned for. So even when you think you are getting closer to being ready, life keeps shifting the conditions, and you find yourself waiting again. Waiting for the right time, waiting for the right mindset, waiting for things to finally feel stable enough to begin. But the truth is, that perfect moment keeps moving. And this is where the book introduces a very uncomfortable idea. You never really have time in the way you think you do. You don't stand outside of life looking at it and deciding when to enter. You are already inside it, right now. This is what the idea of "you are here" is pointing to. Not as a motivational phrase, but as a reality check. Because so much of life is spent mentally living somewhere else, in a future version of yourself who is more prepared, more disciplined, more organized, more ready. But that version never fully arrives either. So you keep postponing action, believing that clarity will come first. But clarity doesn't usually come before action. It comes during it. And this is where the illusion breaks a little. The idea that you can fully prepare your way into a perfect life starts to fall apart. Because there is always something missing, always something uncertain, always something you wish was different before you begin. But life doesn't wait for that feeling. It moves anyway. And so the real question stops being, am I ready? And becomes something simpler. What is actually in front of me right now? What can I do from here? Not from some imagined perfect version of my life. Because in the end, you are always already in the moment you were waiting for. At some point, most people start treating rest like something they have to earn. You work first, then you rest after. You finish your tasks, then you allow yourself to slow down. But even when you do rest, it rarely feels like real rest. Because in the back of your mind, there's always that sense that you should probably be doing something else. Something more useful, something more productive, something that moves you forward. So even your downtime starts to feel slightly uncomfortable, like you're falling behind, even while you're trying to recover. And this is where the book makes a quiet but important point. Rest is not a reward for finishing everything, because everything is never finished. There will always be more emails, more goals, more things you could improve, more ways you could be better. So if rest depends on finishing everything, then rest basically never arrives. Instead, rest has to exist inside the unfinished life, not after it. This is also where impatience starts to show up more clearly. The book describes something like an impatience spiral. The more you feel like you don't have enough time, the more rushed you become. The more rushed you become, the less present you are. And the less present you are, the more life feels like it is slipping away, so you speed up even more, trying to catch up with a feeling that is already disappearing as you chase it. And without noticing, life turns into a constant sense of next. Next task, next goal, next stage, next moment when things will finally feel right. But the current moment keeps getting skipped. Not because it's not important, but because it doesn't feel like enough. And this is where presence becomes the real challenge. Not because life is complicated, but because attention is always being pulled somewhere else. Even simple moments start feeling temporary, like you're just passing through them on the way to something more important. The book uses the idea of staying on the bus to point at this. The idea that life is not something you step in and out of when it becomes convenient. You are already on it. There is no separate moment where real life begins. No future point where everything finally feels aligned and you can fully arrive. You are already moving through it. So the question becomes less about control and more about attention. Can you actually be here while life is happening, not waiting for it to improve first, not postponing your presence until things settle down, just being where you already are? Because in the end, most of life doesn't disappear because it is meaningless. It disappears because we are mentally somewhere else while it is happening. There's a point in life where the pressure to do more starts to feel less like motivation and more like noise. The pressure to be ahead, to be exceptional, to be constantly improving, building, optimizing. It never really stops. Even when things are going well, there's still that quiet voice saying you could be doing more with your time. Something bigger, something more meaningful, something more impressive. But the strange thing is, the more you chase that feeling, the less satisfying it becomes when you actually achieve anything. Because the target keeps moving, and this is where the book gently shifts the perspective, not toward doing more, but toward seeing differently. There's a kind of modern illusion the book touches on through ideas like the loneliness of the digital nomad. The idea that freedom looks like endless choice. You can go anywhere, do anything, be anyone. But in practice, too much freedom can start to feel like disconnection, because when everything is possible, it becomes harder to feel grounded in anything. So instead of feeling free, you feel scattered. And this leads into one of the most unsettling, but also calming ideas in the book. Cosmic insignificance. At first, it sounds discouraging, like being reminded that in the scale of the universe, your life is extremely small. But the book doesn't use it to diminish your life. It uses it to relieve it. Because once you really accept that you are not meant to be everything, you stop carrying the pressure of trying to be everything. You are not supposed to experience every opportunity. You are not supposed to master every skill. You are not supposed to live every possible version of life. That was never the point. Limits are not the problem, they are what make life specific. Without limits, everything would blur together. No direction, no meaning, no focus. But because your time is limited, your attention becomes powerful. What you choose matters because you cannot choose everything else at the same time. And this is where something quiet but important happens. Life becomes lighter, not because it becomes easier, but because you stop fighting reality. You stop trying to expand your life beyond what it can actually hold. And instead of constantly asking how to fit more in, you start asking what actually deserves to be here, not as a way of limiting your life, but as a way of giving it shape. Because in the end, the goal was never to do everything. The goal was to be fully present in the few things you actually choose. And that changes what freedom really looks like. Not unlimited options, but the clarity to live without needing all of them. When you step back from everything in this book, one idea quietly stays behind. Not that you need to do more, not that you need to optimize harder, not that you need to fix your life faster, but that your time was never meant to feel unlimited in the first place. Most of the pressure we feel comes from living as if we should be able to do everything, experience everything, become everything. But none of that removes the fact that you are still living a finite life, in a finite amount of time, with finite attention. Maybe the point was never to get on top of time. Maybe the point is to stop treating time like something you are behind on, and start seeing it as something you are already inside of, right now. If this video made you see time a little differently, you can support the channel by liking the video and subscribing. I'm breaking down books like this into simple ideas you can actually apply and reflect on, not just summaries you forget after watching. And if you've read 4,000 Weeks, or you've had a different takeaway from it, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts in the comments.